What's up? Welcome to this week's episode of Don't Think, the podcast for anyone who spends more time analyzing their life than they do actually enjoying it. If that resonates with you in any way, shape, or form, I'd say that you're in the right place for today. I actually wrote this episode on my flight back from Toronto over the weekend. I was in Toronto to watch the World Series, which, if you've been following me at all, you probably have picked up on the fact that I'm not like a huge sports girly traditionally, inherently. I did not grow up in a huge sports family. I don't know shit about baseball. Okay. I didn't know what a grand slam was till Friday night when I saw the Jays get two of them. This is a sports podcast now. No, but it was a really fun weekend. The MLB invited me Friday night, and I had the pleasure of going with Tim Hortons to their sort of box hotel room, which was a really cool experience on Saturday night. And so MLB, Tim Hortons, anyone, if you're listening, I'd love to be invited back. Actually, I guess by the time this airs, the World Series will have been over. So go Jays. Anyway, I wrote this on my way back on the plane. I find like feelings for me hit fucking hard on flights. I don't know what it is. When I'm high altitude, high feelings, okay? I can't think of a flight in my life I haven't cried on. I could be the happiest place in my life, and I get on that airplane, the tears are going to start to fall. Yeah, and it's just like nostalgia and like disbelief of the world is so big and I'm so small. And I don't know, I start listening to like voice notes on my phone because I'm bored. And so I'm listening to voice notes because there's no Wi-Fi on this plane. First, I wrote this episode of the podcast, and then I was like, I'm bored now. What do I do? And I'm listening to these voice notes, and I come across one because like most of my voice notes on my phone are either podcast episode ideas or like music that I've written. Just low-key have a music degree. Subtle flex. Music degree I've never done anything with. Should I sing for you guys? So I'm going through these voice notes, and I come across one that's like an hour and a half long, and I'm like, what's this? Oh my God, triggered. I forgot that I recorded the phone call where me and my ex broke up in like January. So I'm listening to that. I'm like, should I be listening to this? And then I'm like, it's kind of juicy. I should just release it as an episode of the podcast. Anyway, yeah, I was flying home, and this just sort of came to me. So I want you to really think about the most creative person that you know, or the funniest person that you know. And I will not be surprised if they are the same person. I also will not be surprised if this beautifully creative, hilarious person whose mind clearly works in mysterious ways is also the most depressed, mentally unwell person you know. Is this ringing true? Like maybe it's you. That would make sense if you're like interested in this podcast. It would make sense if it's you. But I always say that the best artists are tortured souls. And I do, like I said, have a music degree from Nova Scotia Community College. So not to toot my own horn, but I do know a lot of musicians, great artists, and they've always been tortured souls. Whether that be a writer, a musician, or just like a creative person in general. I truly believe that because tortured people see the world in so many ways, and they're able to somehow like recreate that and then share it with the people who need help seeing these different angles and possibilities. Us depresso, anxious fucks, and I say that in the most endearing way possible, we feel the full spectrum of emotions. And if you're anything like me, you feel them hard and fast. Like I can go from worst mood of my life, everything is pointless, life sucks, and then you die, like why am I even fucking here, to full-blown elation, cloud 13, in literally the span of 15 minutes, and then back again. And all over nothing. Like I got ignored by the guy I like who doesn't care if I live or die. Worst mood of my life. Like I literally don't know why. What's the point of life? Why was I born? But then I see a cute dog and like a happy old couple. They're holding hands, and I go, oh my God. Life is so beautiful and raw and delicate. Enjoy every moment. And I can't decide if that's the most beautiful thing in the world or the most devastating thing ever. I'm like, oh, wow, they found love and they have each other, but also they're both going to die. You know what I mean? Like, people often ask me too, how do you get through the tough times? I'm going through this or that right now. And like, you know, I'm going through a terrible breakup. I literally want to die. How did you get through your breakup? Because I've made my suffering pretty public for some time now, especially like going through a really tough breakup last winter and a really hard time in general. Like I did not hide how badly I was suffering. And I've gotten through some pretty dark lows. So yeah, I get this question a lot. And my first answer, which I'm sure people hate because I would hate it too, is time, obviously. But I also have a number of these little like sayings and brain tricks that do help pull me out of those lows enough to keep going. And I've just like realized recently with this podcast and some of the messages I've got from you guys about how helpful this show has been for you when you're suffering or going through a dark time or just have anxiety, whatever. I'm like, I think I have a touch for making people feel better when they're feeling really bad. And I was kind of like, again, this was on my flight. I was doing some inner work, but I was kind of like, why am I so good at this? And I realized it's because I have 31 years of experience, or I guess as many years as I've been able to form thoughts of like self-soothing and finding these kinds of brain tricks or exercises or even just thoughts that I can tell myself that actually do help to make me feel better. Because like I've suffered for as long as I can remember. So of course I'm good at it. So let me share a little bit with you guys, okay? Here's one of them. So I'm not trying to get religious or spiritual on you guys, but for the sake of this mental exercise, let's just zoom out and remember. We were randomly selected as like lucky sperms, if you will, to get this weird experience of roughly 70, 80 years in our fucking meat sacks, floating around on this giant rock that we call Earth, just doing whatever the fuck we choose to do. Because at the end of the day, like we do choose what we want to do, as much as it often feels like we're just reacting to life. We're not. We're actually creating it. Like we're literally writing our own movie. So think about that. And then ask yourself, if you weren't in this weird dance, if you were still a sperm, I hate saying the word sperm out loud. Like that's gross. What if you were still a swimmer? Let's call it a swimmer. That's better. And someone, I don't know, God, someone was like, hey, swimmer, do you want to do this cool little thing? You get to like spawn on Earth and be a human and just do whatever you want for 80 years and live and love and feel. And you get to feel the full range of this thing called emotions. There's a bunch of good ones, really good ones, and then there's some bad ones as well. Like, do you want to do it? Imagine, I'd be like, fuck yeah. That sounds super interesting. That's like the coolest video game ever. It's like The Sims, but I'm the Sim. Also, I will actually choose to acknowledge here the irony of this whole mental exercise coming from someone who on countless occasions has said like, why am I even alive? I didn't ask to do life. Put me back in the womb. Because I know some of you might be listening to this like, fuck no, I didn't choose to be alive. But when you like frame it that way, it's pretty fucking cool. So why do I think about this and why does this help me through the bad times? Because it is just that, right? Life is meant to feel. And I've asked the question, why am I here? What is the point of life? So many times. Not even necessarily when I'm down. Like just, I probably ask that question every day. And like all I can come up with to share with you guys is that life is meant to feel. That full spectrum of emotions. And in order to feel the good ones, you have to feel the bad ones. And the bad ones are fucking awful. Believe me, I know that as well as the next person. But they're also so real and raw. And you can learn a lot from them. Also, it's kind of fascinating when you're feeling really, really bad to try to like objectively observe it and just think, wow, like this pain is literally part of a spectrum of emotions. Like how insane is that? That we can love that hard and feel that much that such pain even exists. Love does not exist without pain. Happiness does not exist without sadness. And my favorite of all, life will always be beautiful again. You know, there'll always be another good moment and another bad one. But it brings me back to that question, like, is life devastatingly difficult or is it breathtakingly beautiful? And the answer, I think, is that it's actually both. And it's only either because it's both. Does that make any sense? Like sometimes when I'm doing my nightly 17 and a half hours of scrolling on TikTok, my brain distraction session, also known as my insomnia session. And like, I'll see a video of a child dying from cancer, comforting their mom, like, I'll see you in heaven, mommy, or something just like fucking absolutely shattering, right? I want to set my house on fire. And I just start thinking about the whole big picture. How can certain innocent people, children, good people, good parents, whomever, any random person be randomly subjected to such a soul-crushing experience? And some of us don't ever have to go through anything that heartbreaking in our lives, and some do. And it just hurts my brain, right? A brain that never stops analyzing and trying to find answers for everything, because I want to understand how that makes sense, right? And what the point of life is. Also, if you're like listening to this and you're like, my brain doesn't do that, fuck you. Must be nice if your brain just like sees the video and it's like, oh, sad, keep scrolling. Mind you, I go down this rabbit hole of like, why am I here? Everyone I know is going to die. Why am I floating around this giant rock? Is this a simulation? Am I even real? Are birds real? But really, what is the point, right? Like, how does this make sense? All of the pain that people feel, all of the pain I've felt personally, and the moments that I've had that are just so insanely hard, right? Waiting for life to get easier. And then it does. But when it's easy, knowing in those moments, it will also get hard again. Like right now, I have to say, like, I was driving earlier today and I was looking out the window and it's fall and the leaves are beautiful and, my love life is going pretty well. I'm like, where the fuck is the wood to knock on? Things with my career are feeling positive right now. And I'm just like, I feel really good. And in that moment, I'm trying to appreciate it so much because I know it won't last, because nothing does. I think I've spent a lot of my life, maybe mostly all of it, waiting for the good part to start, right? The part where the pain finally stops forever. And maybe it's because I found my soulmate or my purpose or I win the fucking lottery, whatever. I can't wait to get there. When will it happen? Surely it will happen for me, right? But as I continue to analyze and overanalyze and try to figure out why I'm here and what my purpose is and what the point of life is, I realize more and more that likely isn't going to happen. And if you live with depression or mental illness, you maybe understand this, or maybe it'll start to click for you now. But instead of waiting to be happy, I'm just choosing to enjoy the good moments in between the bad, right? These moments that feel good or even all right, they might actually make up a big portion of my life at the end of it. And no, I don't think it'll be a clear start point where from there on, the rest of my life is painless and beautiful and happy. But those happy, peaceful moments, they're in there. Even mediocre times feel pretty damn good when you've been to hell and back. So this brings me, once again, to, is it beautiful or terrible? Life. Well, it's fucking both. You can't have pie for every meal for the rest of your life. And if you did, you'd probably start to forget that pie is even good. You'd be like, fucking pie again? Whatever. Guess I'll eat my pie. You need some crud food to remind you that pie is a treat. And you should enjoy it when you have it. Enjoy every fucking bite, knowing that tomorrow you're going to have to eat, I don't know, kibble. And I think that's what makes being human so confusing, is this constant overlap of like pain and beauty. And after my last breakup, I was so devastated and I was crying on the plane to go home from the place I had been, the trip I had been broken up on. And the couple in front of me, I remember on the plane, they're laughing hysterically about something stupid. I think it was like fucking a pack of peanuts on the plane. I don't even remember. But I do remember sitting there thinking, how dare you be that happy right now? Like, don't you know that life is over for me sitting right behind you? But then a few minutes later, I found myself like not smiling because I was literally like in the worst pain coma of my life, but just realizing like that's exactly how life works. Someone's life is falling apart in row 4 while someone in row 3 is laughing about candy, falling in love. And both those things are true at the same time, right? One day I'll be the person laughing again too. And I remember thinking that. And I am. I recently went on a trip with the person I'm seeing now, and I remember being on the plane and literally remembering that moment and being like, now I'm the person laughing in the happy row. And who knows, the person behind me might be going through the most soul crushing experience of their entire existence. And that's the duality, pain and possibility existing in the same cabin at 35,000 feet. 35,000 feet. I just kind of made that up, but that sounds like super flighty of me to know that. Yeah. I do watch a lot of plane films, if that makes sense. Mayhem. Have you guys? No, not Mayhem. Mayday. Great show, Discovery Channel. I love a little documentary. Anyway, weirdly, moments like that are when I start to feel that I actually understand this fucking thing called life a little bit. Because when we zoom out, it's not necessarily just random chaos, right? It's how our brains are wired. And I was reading recently about this thing. It's called affect labeling, which basically means that when you name what you're actually feeling, it helps you calm down your brain. And I've done this. Actually, my mom told me to do this at one point, like put a label on it. And studies literally show that just like putting words to an emotion can lower the intensity of the emotion. So when you're in those moments where life feels too big or too much, or, you know, you just want to scream, even just saying this is sadness, this is loss, this is awe, can give you enough space to breathe again. And actually, this is going to sound kind of crazy, but I've thought of it like, you know, in times of extreme pain, like, oh, my sim is sad, you know, she doesn't like this. She doesn't like that her heart feels sad right now. And that's okay. She's sad right now. Like, our brains are built to register pain louder than pleasure. So we feel it so intensely. And sometimes you need these little tricks just to get you through the moments. That same sensitivity that makes the pain so loud is also, though, what lets us see the world as breathtaking. The same wiring that makes life devastatingly difficult is also what makes it beautiful. So, I don't know. I hope this felt good for some of you. Otherwise, maybe you're listening like, girl, you are truly fucking off your rocker. True. But as always, you guys continue to surprise me by validating that I'm not alone in this brain. And so for that, I thank you so much. I'm trying to think of what to name this episode, but I want it to be something that if you're scrolling through and you're like going through the worst fucking time of your life and you see the name, it'll stop you and you'll be like, I need to listen to that right now. And I hope it's helpful. So on that note, let's get into the Don't Think deep dive and hear from you guys. So this week I asked, what was something painful that you went through that made you look at life different? A few people said cataract surgery, kind of funny. But some of you sent in some very honestly tough to listen to stories because they are just heartbreaking. And so I do want to just say, like, trigger warning here, because some of these we're talking about sexual assault, we're talking about suicide. So I just want to say that before we continue. I got a new microphone, you guys. Sorry, I'm just looking right now for the emails with the SpeakPipe, with the submissions from you guys. But I just wanted to tell you guys about my new microphone. I don't know. I think it sounds pretty crispy. Hopefully it does. Okay. Sorry, my phone's failing me. My second phone. I'm going to have to get these up on my laptop. Please bear with me. I do realize I can cut all of this out. So silly. Just talking to myself, really. It's what we're doing here. Someone's got to do it. Okay. So let's hear from Johanna. Kahuna Matata? Sorry, I know that's probably not funny. Johanna.
So, most of high school, I struggled with eating disorders and suicidal ideation. And then a month before I graduated my senior year, my dad had a psychotic split. So, I went to college with a lot on my mind, but I had to push through to keep my 4-year scholarship. I had to complete my undergrad in that 4-year time frame to get the scholarship. Then during college, I became really anemic and I almost died. And having that near-death experience gave me a whole new outlook on just like meaning I made of life, and also helped with some of that suicidal ideation. I also think my dad's issues with mental health have given me perspective on my own mental health and others. I'm a therapist now and learned to enjoy the smallest of things because all life is precious.
Oh. The ending of that I wasn't expecting. Honestly, I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. Like, listening to that, all I could think was, well, how am I gonna respond to this? Because it's just like, that is so much for someone to go through at such a young age too. Before you even went to college, you had to experience these things that a lot of people never have to go through in their lifetime. And so it's really honestly touching to hear that you come out the other side with this new perspective for life and a therapist. And I can only imagine like the empathy that you have as a therapist and probably as a friend and a person in general for other people because of those experiences that you've lived through. Also, I love what you said about like enjoying the tiny moments of life, because like, obviously you don't know that I just went on about that for an entire episode, but I think that just speaks for that, those people, those of us, not to compare my pain to yours. I mean, I don't want to do that at all. Obviously very different experiences in life, and it's not a contest, it's not a contest, but if it were, you'd win. But those of us who have experienced so much pain, like, we do come out of it kind of grateful for those moments of life that feel good. Okay. Thank you so much, Johanna. Let's hear from Joshua.
St. Patrick's Day of 2021, I went out with some friends and I went out alone, and I went and saw my kids, and I went and saw a really pretty girl and gave her flowers, and I went and did some karaoke, and I had a great time and a blast. At the end of the night, I messaged all of my children telling them how much I loved them. I messaged the pretty girl and told her that I really liked her, and I hope she has a great life, and I hope she's able to move forward with a lot of things that she was being dumped on right then. And I messaged an ex and told her I was happy we had children together. And I went home and I tried to kill myself. And fortunately, it didn't work. I woke up and I realized that there was an actual reason why I was here. And from that moment on, after getting myself out into the shower and crying for probably 15 minutes, I realized what I needed to do for the rest of my life. And that was to finally focus on myself, finally focus on finding a way to love me. And that's what I've done. And my life since then, a few ups and downs, but it has been magnificent and spectacular. And I am so happy, and I'm still here.
Wow, Joshua, I'm speechless. Honestly, I'm so sorry that that's something that you had to go through to find your meaning for life and appreciate your life and want to be here. But I'm so happy at the same time that happened, because, it sounds like you found beauty in your world and in your life. And I'm so glad that you're still here, because I'm just listening to this thinking like, I don't know who's going to be listening to this episode, but I can't imagine hearing something like that. If you're in that really tough spot where you're wondering, why am I here? What's the point? Hearing a story like yours, Joshua, you know, I can only imagine would be life-saving to the right person at the right time. So thank you so much for sharing that. It's so vulnerable and brave. And also just thinking next week, the episode, I'm going to have to do something a little more lighthearted for my episode next week, because this is so heavy. But again, like I think the heaviness needs to happen, because I really, the messages I get from you guys about the show are just like so, you know, meaningful to me, that it's been really helpful for you guys when you're in a really tough spot. So I think that's, you know, these kinds of stories are really impactful. But yeah, definitely something lighter next week, okay? We're going to laugh about like boys. All right, let's hear from Mallory.
When I was in college, my boyfriend at the time, high school sweetheart, love of my life, passed away unexpectedly due to medical malpractice. It wasn't like I could pin it on an accident or an illness or anything like that. And it really just, I mean, it was dark. Don't get me wrong, it was dark for a long time. But it really it forced me to be more grateful for everything, not in like a toxic way, but I really try hard not to get stuck in the weeds of things, to see the bigger picture, to look at the silver linings, to try and turn things into reasons to be grateful, even though a lot of shit sucks. It could be worse. And not to say that like everyone doesn't have their issues, but like for me, that was the worst thing in my life. So I know it could be worse, and I know I got through it. So no matter what happens to me now, I can get through it.
Wow, Mallory, thank you. Life is so fragile, and that's what kept coming to mind when you were telling this story, because, you know, to have something so tragic happen at such a young age. And I think the theme here that keeps coming up is just like, when you've been through something really painful and really hard, it's eye-opening in the sense that you zoom out and you do look at the bigger picture of life, and just, I think, really take note of those beautiful, precious moments, and try not to get caught up in the minutia that we get so, you know, distracted by, that we can't even enjoy life. And I started this episode by saying you're in the right place if you're someone who spends more time analyzing life than enjoying it, which I'm so guilty of myself. But I think if there's one thing I can say, is that if you take anything away from this episode, let it be to just try to enjoy the moments where life feels good, because there's always going to be something that's going to hurt, something that's coming that's going to be painful, something in the past that you could still, you know, be triggered by. But it's those day-to-day moments, because life is both devastating and beautiful at the same time. Thank you so much for those of you who called in. There's so many more really good ones. I say good ones as though like your guys' horrifically painful stories are good. You know, juicy ones. But there are some amazing stories that you guys sent in. If you're listening to this episode and you sent something in, I just want you to know I listened to all of them. I sent replies back to you guys, I think, on most or all of them. And I'm hoping that I can use those stories in a future episode, because, like, you know, you guys took the time and vulnerability to share those, and I think that they are really impactful. It's just that I only have so much time today. But thank you all so much. I hope that we're not leaving on like a depresso note. I really wanted this to be like uplifting, but I do recognize that, you know, it's a bit of a like depressing note to end on. But no, you guys, we're taking something positive away from this. We love life. Life is beautiful. Life will always be beautiful again. And next week we're going to talk about dating and boys and silly stuff. Something really light. It's going to be so much fun. All right, you guys, as always, if you love the show, if you like the show, if you hated the show, I don't care. Give it a like, give it a follow, send it to a friend. And until next Thursday, don't think too much, but if you do, at least you're in good company. Love you guys. Bye. Oh my goodness, Herbie. What we're gonna do with you? Ow! I fucking broke my toe. Fuck! This stupid fucking apartment. This stupid fucking ring light.